everybody, this is Russ Carson Jr., one of the genealogists here at Family Tree Nuts, and we're in rural Clark County. We're just a little bit south upriver from Ford and Clark County, and we're right on the banks of 2 Mile Creek, and I'm here with a special guest. Do you want to tell them who you are?
My name's Amanda Thompson-Hughes, and I'm my family's self-proclaimed family historian.
Awesome, awesome. Now we're at a neat little spot here, and it's basically along the creek here. It's a holler kind of thing.
It is.
And we're on a ridge line, and where exactly are we at the moment?
Well, we're on land that was once owned by my 2 times great-grandfather, Richard Thompson.
Okay.
And at this particular physical location, we're at the family graveyard.
Awesome, that's awesome. Now, who's buried at this graveyard?
Well, up to 7 people,
Okay.
as much as I can figure.
Yep.
The earliest burial was an infant son, about 9 months old, buried in 1876.
Wow.
Richard bought this land in 1872.
Wow.
And so the son was buried here in 1876.
The last burial was that of my 2 times great-grandmother, Jenny Thompson Maupin, which was the name of her second husband, and she was buried here in 1923.
1923, so basically 97 years is the newest grave here. The grave here has a very unique story when it comes to genealogy work. Tell us about this site and your story to find this place.
Well, like I said, it is on land that was my 2 times great-grandfather, and I first saw evidence that he had the land here from a 1877 Clark County map.
Okay.
You know, little plat map, had his
Right,
name, you know,
right.
R. Thompson.
Right.
And so then, you know, doing genealogy, you want to find land records and, you know, marriage records and all of those things. So I went to the Clark County Courthouse and saw the land records for here. The L&N Railroad is just maybe 100 yards further up the ridge, and so there was land records about where the L&N bought part of his land to actually put the railroad in 1882. And then if you fast forward, after Jenny died, the brother that remained, he was actually buying up
Okay.
his other siblings' interest in this piece
Sure.
of property.
Sure.
And in those land deeds, it said that there was a graveyard here.
Okay.
And that, you know, because you have to give right away to
Right.
family members to come in and visit their loved ones.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh, there's a graveyard there,
Right,
you know, and
sure.
I'm pretty much of a cemetery freak, and so I just had to find it.
Sure, sure. So you went to the courthouse there in Clark County, and I think they gave you a map with the coordinates of the property lines and things.
Yeah, I took one of the deeds down to, I think it's called the PVA office.
Right.
And a wonderful lady sitting behind a desk down there, she was able to put into her system, like
Yeah.
the surveyor system, you know, this many rods to this
Right.
thing, and then, you know, and put in
Sure.
all the coordinates. And she printed me out a map with basically X marks the spot. And my husband and I came up here with that map and
Sure.
our phone GPS and was just doing some dead reckoning, you know, and all of those sorts of things. And on our 3rd trip up here, which was about this time last year, we came across this obvious man-made fieldstone wall.
Sure.
That was a subject to conversation. We're like, what is that doing up there?
Right.
That's obviously man-made.
And
And then there's 3 more.
Yeah.
This is the best one, well preserved, but basically 4 corners of the cemetery laid out here.
awesome, awesome. So here's a cemetery that had been lost forever. I think you have an elderly cousin that said her father was charged of clearing this. Used to kind of not really enjoy that. So,
Yeah.
But he cleared it till into the 60s, I guess, because that would have been his grandmother that's buried here.
Right, it would have been his grandmother
Right.
that was buried here, and then, yeah, into the 60s, and because then he became too elderly to come up or down
Right.
the mountain to do this, and he would complain about, like, everybody needs to be buried in the town, like nobody
Right.
should be buried in the country because it's
Sure.
too difficult.
So this is a cemetery that has been lost for half a century.
Right.
Lost. Nobody knew about it. Nobody visited it. Nobody knew it was even here. You found it through some records, did some research, and found it. That's an incredible story. I think you've done an amazing service to your ancestors and of remembering them. How does it make you feel to do that?
My husband asked me that same question, you know, like, why? Like, what is it? And it's just, I'm tied here. I've always felt like I belonged here.
Sure.
And so being the family historian and wanting to document these people's lives, I felt I needed to honor them to find their last place of rest. And I've joked before, like, I'm bringing a marker up to the side of that mountain, you know, the side of that hill, and I probably will do that.
Yes, some sort of marker to mark it.
Yeah.
Because that being said, this is a difficult spot to find. We came here yesterday and we looked for about an hour.
Yeah.
Until we really knew some landmark things, took some photos to document this cemetery. It's somewhat difficult to find, kind of thing, even if you know where it is.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to put a marker here to so that it's always can be found for all history. And this video will actually document that too.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I thought about your great-great-grandma that's buried here, Jenny, she's really the last of your line that's from Kentucky.
My personal line, yes.
Right, there's other people still here, but I mean, of you, your great-grandfather moved away.
Yeah.
I think, tell that story real fast about that family.
Well, my great-great-grandparents had about 7 kids. 4 of them were brothers. And in the late 1800s, they got old enough, you know, adult age, and they started to move away. Sure. A lot of people in this area of Kentucky started to move away.
Right.
Southern Indiana, Illinois, they had better farmland, you know, better opportunities.
Right.
So they started, you know, they made plans to move away. All 4 brothers were going to leave.
And the night before?
And the night before, the second oldest basically saw his heartbroken mother, Jenny, and he decided to stay. And so the next day he went back and bought back his farm equipment that he sold to the neighbor, you know, and all of that stuff. And so there's one of the brothers decided to stay here. And if not for that, this cemetery probably would have been lost forever.
Would have never been found, right?
Right.
And you're descended from one of the 3 brothers that moved away.
Yeah, and eventually made his way to Northwest Ohio.
Which is why you don't talk like those people that are here in Kentucky, right? So, but that's a really neat story of coming back to your roots here, right on this hillside here. So, is there anything else you'd like to say while we're here?
You know, we've visited a couple cemeteries today, like 3. You know, one was pretty kind of still well preserved, one was in the middle of nowhere, and then this one's really in the middle of nowhere. It's important for roots and to know, you know, about cemeteries, because this is lost.
Yeah, not anymore.
But not anymore. And I'm just so thankful for the people who've helped me,
right.
you know, along the way. Elder cousins,
right.
you know, Judy Sparks, you know, Betty Jean Smith. I could not have found this without them.
Sure,
So.
and one last thing I'd like to say about the area too is that, you know, we were talking before we left here the first time about how can we better mark this so we can find it again.
Yeah.
So we don't want these people to be lost ever again. Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to find it, you know, ever again. And we walk down. There's a cliff that's right here. You can't get there from there, but you know, we kind of were talking. You know, what do we do here, right?
Right.
We saw an animal trail, a deer path, which led to an easy little ravine for us to get down and come in here. And what took us over an hour to find took us about 10 minutes to rediscover again. So some people would think that's divine intervention or that's spiritual of the ancestors, we don't know.
Yeah.
But just a neat little side story I thought that I'd add to that there. So here we are at, I guess what you would call Thompson Cemetery.
Thompson Graveyard is what's on my great-grandmother's death certificate.
Yeah,
so.
Thompson Graveyard. The great-great-grandmother of Amanda is buried here in rural Clark County. And hey, remember, family tree nuts. Let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.